Hi, a very good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cynthia Paul, a lecturer from Asia Pacific University from the School of Business and one of the advisors of Sustainable Future Fusion SFF Club. The Sustainable Future Fusion Club is an initiative deeply committed to promoting sustainable environmental awareness and action among its members and the broader community. Our activities and projects are designed to align with Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, particularly focusing on educating and engaging students to create diverse and more sustainable future. This collaboration also reinforces our dedication to Sustainable Development Goal 16, which is centered on peace, justice, and strong institution. By highlighting the role of creativity and sustainability, we aim to build a just and a peaceful society through our collective efforts. Today, we celebrate International Youth Day, a United Nations designated day observed on August 12th. And the theme for International Youth Day today is Empowering Youth, Building Tomorrow. This annual celebration recognizes the energy, passion, and dedication of youths around the world, while bringing attention to the cultural and legal issues they face. In connection with this important day, Sustainable Future Fusion is excited to announce that we are expanding our online presence by thanking the marketing team from Asia Pacific University. This expansion is aimed at furthering our mission to promote sustainability and environmental awareness, leveraging the spirit of youth empowerment to create a brighter and more sustainable future for all. Now, this expansion is being spearheaded by Arsyad Azrai, a renowned playwright, poet, and youth theatre advocate with extensive experience in arts education. Arsyad, who leads creative programs at PKK Tuanku Bainun, which is based in Taman Tun, Dr. Ismail, Kuala Lumpur, is playing a pivotal role in shaping the youths today. His expertise is in inspiring and empowering young people through the arts will ensure that our online platform not only engages a broader audience but also educates and motivates them to a meaningful action. Today, we are have a thought-provoking talk title. You're probably not going to do what you're doing in the university. This title alone challenges us to think critically about the realities of life after graduation, particularly on how our career paths may diverge from what we studied. Arshad, the stage is all yours.
I am muted. Thank you. I am muted. Um, I hope you can hear me now. Is everything good? Can you hear me? Awesome. The drawbacks of doing online, sometimes you don't realize when you're muted. Anyway, just to go back, my name is Arsyad. I'm the head of programs at PKK Tuanku Bainun. Um, when I was given the privilege to do this webinar, I was asked about what I wanted to talk about. I was given the typical titles you would see about when talking about youth at the university level, everything about making a change, everything about being the future. But I wanted to approach it from an angle that felt more sincere to me because my ideas about change and my ideas about being genuine to yourself is a bit different than what you would find in the social um, in the space of people who do social work. So I hope you enjoy. The title of my presentation is You're Probably Not Going to Do What You're Doing in University. To understand my dad, you first need to understand my ato. This is a favorite picture of mine. This is me, my dad, and my ato. My grandfather was a Malay language teacher. He was a teacher throughout his life and ended a career at a headmaster. If you see the top left of the picture, that's him. Incredibly young. I think this was 1960s or 1950s. He was a loving father. My atuk raised my dad in Tapah, Perak. I hope some of you guys know where that is. Unfortunately, at 6, my dad lost his mother due to childbirth complications. Trying to still raise a family, my atuk remarried 3 years after his wife passed away. It was far from a substitute for my dad, but my atuk did his best to raise his family as best as he could with discipline, dedication, and wisdom. And growing up, my atuk would also convey his lessons through my dad through stories. He was a storyteller. The story that stuck with my dad the most was the story of a bird that painstakingly builds a nest for his family, providing everything from shelter to nourishment. When the baby bird learns to fly, the family flies off to a different place, leaving behind the nest for other birds to take shelter and raise their own family. My dad didn't really understand that why the bird would build something so painstakingly and just suddenly leave it all behind. He didn't understand that story when he was younger. My atuk was also incredibly disciplined. My atuk was very strict with my dad and his siblings. There were 8 siblings. I have 8 uncles and aunties on my dad's side. And he was always strict about being consistent in education. In his old age, he maintained as the head of the family. I remember when I was younger, it was a thing where whenever my atuk would call back the whole family to my kampung in Setiawan, they all would go back, no questions asked. Nobody dared to say no to my grandfather. He was strict, but yet he was still living. The one small house that I had in my kampung in Setiawan kept on expanding, and every time I went home, I remember There were new rooms to accommodate his chuchus, his chichits, and he loved having his family over to his house. He even kept a detailed ledger of all the family financial transactions, from the smallest of 5 ringgit gifts to the parcels of land that he purchased for his family. He was incredibly detailed. He was incredibly disciplined. Before he passed away, my dad managed to visit him in the hospital, and one of the fondest things I like to think about was during that last visit. I think it was barely half an hour before my grandfather passed away. My ato asked how my studies were doing, even though I was in a different country half the globe away. My ato, he passed away in Setiawan in 2014. To understand me, you first need to understand my father. My dad was a rocker. Growing up, he played drums for a band. He went to a boarding school a couple of cities away from his hometown of Tapah in Ipoh, Perak. He was the head prefect of the school. And after he graduated high school, he took a diploma in surveying, as in surveying the land. He took a diploma in surveying to follow his older brother's footsteps, who is a surveyor at a university level until today. One day, while he was surveying the path for the North-South Highway, he would go into jungles. He has lots of stories about the things that he saw in these jungles. If this was even before the North-South Highway existed, he was part of the teams that actually surveyed the North-South Highway. He realized that he couldn't raise a family as a surveyor, as he was in the field most of the time. The day he realized this, he sent in a resignation letter to his boss. On the day itself, he knew that this wasn't the life for him. So after deciding to leave his career as a surveyor behind, my dad decided he wanted to study overseas. Looking for a scholarship from the government, he got rejected many times at the interview stage, as they deemed my ato's job, he was just a headmaster, he didn't make that much money, but they deemed it too lucrative to justify a scholarship for my dad. During his last attempt at getting a scholarship, my dad told me that what he did was, just as the committee was about to reject him, he took a list out of his bag, and this list was of all the sons and daughters of datos and VIPs that received a scholarship before him, that had way better jobs than my grandfather did, and come from a place of way higher privilege, but still got a scholarship. As you can imagine, the committee wasn't very happy about this, and he got chased out the room. My dad then decided that the only way to go overseas was on his own dollar, and he studied finance in New Hampshire while working as a delivery driver to pay for his tuition. When he came back to Malaysia, he decided to become a banker. Just like the last time, he decided after a while of being a banker, it wasn't the best career to raise a family. So after he completed his master's, he became a lecturer at University Technology Petronas. Here he is. Not the best photo of him, but I mean, he looks good in his picture. But yeah, that's him as a university professor in Petronas. He was a very disciplined teacher and would make sure that his students were punctual and paid attention in his class. Eventually, he got his PhD in political economics, studying the historical economics in Perak. My dad is also a writer. In his tenure as a professor, he wrote 2 books about the history of the economics of Perak. At the beginning of every chapter, he would talk about growing up in Perak and the people who inspired him. Although, admittedly, his topic was pretty dry, he made sure to include snippets about the history of Perak and about himself, because this is a man in love with his own state. And here he is with Tuanku Sultan Nazrin, actually, who took a lot of inspiration from his book to write his own book about the history of Perak. So my dad is Perakin through and through. My sister and I are 7 years apart. This age gap means that we experience different stages of life than one another. When I was in primary school, my sister was still a baby. But despite this, my father still raised us with dedication and love and paid attention to everything we needed. Even though he was part of a university, UTP, University Technology Petronas, that is very well known for intense KPIs and workload, he would always arrive home at 8:30 on the dot, which is something that I value until today. He never put his job ahead of his family, and he never really talked about it either. He didn't make a big deal of it, but he always made sure to be there for the family. During the weekends, we would go out to the market. He taught me how to play golf. I still don't know how to play golf, but he tried. He's also incredibly disciplined, just like his father. He kept the house super clean and would berate me when I wouldn't do the same. He kept such good care of his old Mercedes that he bought in England that I still use that same car till today. That Mercedes he bought in England in the year 2000, which is older than some of you. I think some of you are listening. But he kept such good care of it that I still use the same car today, which is amazing, actually, if you think about it. And my dad also put a lot of effort into my education and made sure that I had a head start above everyone in my class. And to understand me, you need to understand that I was born a gifted child. I started reading as soon as I could speak. And as a child, I had competency in maths way above my age. So much so that I won international awards for my age groups in mathematics. But at the same time, I was a brat. I was incredibly stubborn. I didn't like listening to authority, even as a kid. Like the same behaviors that people know me for today, I've had since I was a child. I despise being told what to do and would rather focus on what I love than pay attention to any schoolwork or any responsibilities otherwise. I grew up in England. I went to school in this really great school in Hull, Yorkshire, which is the eastern part of England. The school there, they exposed me a lot to the arts and creative thinking, which is sort of the antithesis of what we think British education is. Somehow, I don't know why, that school never really cared about exams. All they cared was giving a lot of opportunities for all the students to explore, and I was one of those students. I still had incredible teachers and I was still really good at mathematics, but my fondest memories were acting in the school play and listening to my teacher tell stories during whenever it rained outside and we couldn't play outside. She was a brilliant storyteller. When I came back to Malaysia, I miraculously learned Malay in a year from my UPSR. I barely speak Malay still, but I somehow got straight A's from my, back then you might not know, back then they had UPSR, which meant that I got into what was my dream school then, the Malay College Kuala Kangsar in Perak. Still is one of the best schools in Malaysia. And just like my father, I left home as a teenager to go to boarding school. Just like before, I got straight A's for my PMR, SPM, but still couldn't be bothered to focus in class. I still did not like being in class. I did not like learning, but I loved everything else that I did. I spent most of my time in my school orchestra. I helped design the school magazine, and I was also in the school theater team. So everything I did, everything I loved was outside of the classroom. After that, I got a scholarship to study overseas in the Pennsylvania State University to my strengths. And because I was so good in maths, my course that I was supposed to study was in actuarial science. If you don't know, that's the science of risk management and everything to do with calculating risk. But then after 2 years into my degree, I just got tired of maths. I didn't want to do that as a living. I did a lot of maths. I was very good at maths when I was younger, but I just did not see that as a career path. I got tired of answering questions that I just wanted to start asking the questions instead. I changed my degree to marketing. I fell in love in sociology, but overall the goal was still the same, to get a good corporate job in Malaysia, which is the typical Southeast Asian dream, the typical Malaysian dream, get a good corporate job, climb the ladder, and get a lot of money. But then things changed. The things I took for granted started to fall apart. My parents got divorced. My mother became abusive. And I started to become disillusioned with the typical Asian dream. Money became a sickness in my family. I didn't want to be a part of the problem. During my last year of university, this is a picture from outside my graduation ceremony. It's the only picture I have because I didn't actually go to my graduation ceremony because I was too busy hanging out with my friends the night before and I woke up late for the ceremony. I just didn't care about what I was doing in university anymore. I didn't want to do what I did in university. Then I started to think about what I could do next. And the people that I could still remember the most were the people that made a difference in my life. My dad was a teacher. My grandfather was a teacher. On the right there is the late Cikgu Rizal, my additional mathematics teacher. He was absolutely a brilliant teacher. And I wanted to take more pictures of my teachers, but I couldn't find them. But I've had a lot of incredible teachers in my life that I realized if I really wanted to make a difference, I needed to become a teacher. And so I did. Through the Teach for Malaysia program, I became a government school teacher. That's me. I think during my first, God, I look different, but during my first week at school, I taught English in Johor at a typical government school in Pasir Gudang, Johor. These are my kids. They were Form 4, and these are my class kids. They were also my students involved in theatre, and that's when I started to become more involved with the arts. I even took a postgraduate diploma in teaching. So I actually, my highest certificate right now is actually a postgraduate diploma in teaching. It's something that I use more and take pride in more than my original degree, Bachelor of Science in Marketing, which I don't care for anymore. This is me and my girlfriend when we graduated in 2018. As I said, I started doing the arts. I started being involved in my kids' theater because the school that I went to didn't really have a theater teacher, so I took up that role and I started to bring my kids to perform everywhere. This is in some random mall in Johor. I can't remember which mall, but I remember we would just contact the mall, tell them we want to do a performance. If they say yes, we'll go do a free performance and give my kids that experience. This is during one of the final performances they had. I began to write scripts for them because they learned English at a second language level, so there weren't necessarily scripts readily available for them that is suitable to their level. So I started writing for them and I started directing them. And my first works of theater were absolutely horrible, but it's having the audacity to do these sort of things, which I think is important. Putting myself out there and really being brave to do things that I don't think I'm qualified in doing is the reason why I managed to get where I am today. This is the second year of my teaching. I got better at doing the arts, and this is me bringing my kids up to compete in a theater competition in Singapore, where they had a great time. They got silver, which they're not particularly proud of. They really wanted to do better, but I think the experience is more valuable for them than any award could get them. And then after I finished my 2 years of teaching through the Teach for Malaysia program, I got incredibly lucky. I got scouted by this organization called PKK Tuanku Bainun, the same organization I am with today, and they offered me a job as the head of programs, the head of their programs. This was an amazing opportunity, but an opportunity that meant that I had to build something for myself too. All the groundwork was there, but I still had to create the things that PKK Tuanku Bainun can be known for until today. This picture was during my first Tirai, which is our biggest performance of the year. It was in 2019. It was not a good performance, I'll admit, but I wasn't given the time and resources to do something good. And in fact, I think it's better that I did a below average performance, because I've learned a lot from that and strive to do better. And then me and my team, and I'm again incredibly lucky to have such a passionate team, we started to make something. PKK Tuanku Bainun back then didn't have much in the way of programs and productions, but every year now we have 5 or 6 productions, public productions, that people come to watch our teenagers perform. And these are teenagers, these aren't professionals, and I wanted to keep it that way, and I wanted to create something for them, something that they could learn theater on a professional level. And I think that's an important experience for them, because rarely do you get this experience anywhere else. It is an incredible experience to work with them. This is like 5 different productions, but we've done more than this. These are the ones I just remember to put pictures of. And this happened all in the space of the last 2 years. And I directed and wrote most of them. I was also lucky enough to make friends within the industry. We work with local theater companies as well to create these productions together. My friend comes and directs them, certain productions. And these are all my writing. And aside theater, I also got to do many other things. I designed PKK's newsletter. I got one of my colleagues did all the art. I did all the design. We created a children's book together that hopefully you want to get published one day. It's called Sarah dan Sang Kancil at the bottom right. It's a book about how to deal and how to avoid sexual abuse. We also worked with refugees to create a shadow puppet performance. The bottom one is that performance. The top one is actually the original video from Sarah dan Sang Kancil. So the series Sarah that talks about children's rights are both in the mediums of film. That first one was filmed, and also in a book. So we didn't just create theater productions, we also created everything else in between, and it's been an incredible experience for me to do so. And I got better at the arts. I somehow or rather, after writing and working with my friend for a while, I actually got an opportunity to write for KLPAC in my first commercial work. And this was my first all my other productions are still professional. This is my first freelance commercial work for KLPAC, which is an amazing organization to get the privilege to work for. And this was my first production featuring adults. It did really well. I'm very happy with it, and it just shows my growth from when I started out doing theater in random malls in Johor all the way to doing a commercial production in KLPAC. And the reason I wanted to tell you all of this is to tell you what I've learned from all of it. I hope that you can learn something from my story, and because telling stories is the only way I know how to share ideas. So number one, generally, you're probably not going to do what you did in university, and that's okay. These are my friends when I was in America. Don't mind we were young. What were you going to do? These are all my friends in America. None of them are doing what they did in university. My friend to my left, the one furthest to the right, he is an environmental engineer. and now he is a businessman. The one on furthest left, I can't remember what his degree was, but it had nothing to do with the business he's doing now. And the one to my left, he's also not doing what he's doing in university. And this is, yes, this is a small sample size, but I don't think I could only name one friend out of the 40 odd people that went uh, in my batch to America together with me. Out of all the Malaysians, I can only name one person who genuinely is still doing his job, is still based on what he did in university. So the reality of it is the education you're getting isn't necessarily what you're locked into and what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. I like to think of education more of a test of your critical thinking, a test of your discipline, a test of your character, more than a test of the subject matter itself. Which is why I have a problem of everyone who sort of lambasts the education system for teaching you useless stuff. Like, yes, nobody cares, and I still don't care that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but that is a good test of critical thinking and how to break apart one concept to make it smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. That's biology. You're learning something big. Sorry, you're learning something small. You're putting everything under a microscope to learn about all the small mechanisms that make a big organism work. That's why you learn biology. And I would, if I have to listen to one more person say that schools should teach you how to do your taxes, I think I'm going to go. Okay, I don't want to say that online, but I'm sick and tired of that argument. Is because number one, doing taxes isn't that hard. You can learn it within a day, just YouTubing it. And number two, that doesn't really test your critical thinking as much as you think it's useful. Useful things don't take that long to learn. The things that take a while to learn are more abstract and will take a longer time and will actually test how well you can think and not just how well you can receive information. Number two, when given the opportunity, build the change that you want to see. This applies for when I was in Johor and when I was at PKK. Even though the groundwork was there, I was given the opportunity, but everything else I had to build by myself. I had to learn to write. I had to learn to direct. I had to learn all these things, and I also had to have the bravery and audacity to do so. I'm very lucky that I managed to pick it up very quickly, but I could have as easily failed. I have failed many, many times, but it's okay. It's about picking yourself out and still picking yourself up and still not saying no to any opportunity you get. Failure isn't the worst thing that could happen. I always try to tell my kids that it's okay to fail. It's okay to be bad at something. It's okay to be bad at something. What's important is that you need to love doing that thing in the first place. You need to love the experience and you need to love how it helps you grow as a person, or else there's no real point of doing it. Number three, you are your story. Tell it. My story revolves around great men who have inspired me in my life. And everything that has happened to me, from the little things that, even though I didn't pursue arts or as even though I didn't pursue arts in university, I still ended up in it because you could see all the signs as I was growing up. I loved the arts more than anything else. I was as stubborn as a donkey. I didn't care about anything else except for the things that I love doing. And you can ask my dad. He would attest, and people around me also, they would attest. If I care about something, I put 100% in. If I don't care about something, I will just ignore it. No matter how important it is, if I don't care about something, I genuinely will not do it. And that is my story. And what I want you to know is that I know some of you can't relate to my story, and some of you will probably shake your head and tell me to my face that, yeah, you're here because of privilege. And yes, I am here because of privilege, and I don't take that for granted. And I want to make a change because I have received so much privilege in my life. I want to try to give back to the people who have not received as much privilege as I have, and that is my story. And your story may not be as heart-wrenching as mine. You may have never gone through any family trauma, or you may have gone through worse family trauma. But regardless, be proud of your story and live your life and tell your story according to it. You and I think a lot of people who don't appreciate their story are the same people who start to lose their souls and lose their lives in their career and everything else, and not appreciate the little things along the way. And I would never want that from anyone, for anyone. Number 3, change comes from within. This is a very cheesy line, and I hate cheesy things. That's why I decided to do something else for today, even though it's just mostly me yapping. But still, this line, I think, not only relates to the idea that change comes from within you, but you also need to be genuine in making that change. I am making a change to the arts because I love the arts. If you love the environment, make a change in the environment. If you love social justice, make a change in social justice. If you love, finance and the economy, make a change in that. Make a change in those fields. Make sure the change that you are making is genuine to you. If you don't care about something, don't try to pretend to care about it just because people tell you to do so. I mean, some things, of course, everyone should care for, but the number one thing that you are trying to actively change should be the thing that you genuinely care about. This was me in India. I worked with, a couple of artists from all over the world. We went to India and we worked with a couple of kids from the slums of Delhi there. I can't remember what area that was, but it's basically a more, what do you call, lower income area of Delhi. And it was incredible to see these kids be so resilient considering their circumstances. And for me, going there was a privilege, and I decided to do so because that is the change I want to see. And that is the change I know that I can do, which is in the arts. Yeah, so I don't think change is about changing yourself, or even the whole shtick about being a better version of yourself. It's about being genuine to yourself. And for me, being genuine is one of the most important aspects of being human there is. And I don't like people who aren't. That's all. That's all my yapping. I will start answering questions from the audience. Thank you for listening. I hope you got something from it. If you didn't, nothing much I can do. I'm sorry. But the only way I knew I could do this was the only way I know how to teach a lesson or say something, which is through stories. I'm a playwright. What are you going to do? All right, Dr. Cynthia.
Thank you. I've got two gentlemen here. Yes, these are my two gentlemen, my students from, I can't see from, what do you call it? The Sustainable Future Fusion. They are and also we have Hu Lei Yang, who is actually doing his internship. So I just wanted to introduce you guys to them. Okay, thank you very much, guys. And they are helping me pose questions as well. Okay. Thank you. And just to let you know, first of all, thank you. It was a real insight. My gosh, your journey has been an inspiring journey. I mean, when you brought up about your dad, it brought up a lot of memories about my dad. My dad was my inspiration, and he did a lot. Just to inform you, he was a person who only had an education up to primary school. You know, those days, primary school education was you still survived. Today, primary school doesn't survive you in anything except for probably certain skills. And he was rank and file, and he always taught me that education was very important. Of course, university life is also important. But if you have a backup, I mean, if you always have something, you like what you said, Arshad. I like the phrase that when you said, think outside the box, which a lot of us do not. Okay, we think we're not that creative in the way we think. We think education is everything. I mean, I studied accounts. My degree, my master's was on finance, but unfortunately, when I went to working life, I couldn't use the accounts that I studied, because it's basically debits and credits and nothing much, So
Yeah.
I had to look at working and how it went on. But really, a very good insight. I mean, your journey has actually brought a lot of inspiration to a lot of people, in the sense that they do not have to think that they just have to study and have your university education, and then you just go out there and just do what you're supposed to do in from the university education. You actually have to branch out to do something more than that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, we've got some questions posed, but um, yes, maybe we'll look at. There's some things that are going to be coming up, I think. I don't know whether it's being shared. Let me see whether I can share it. Okay, I don't think so. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so these are our upcoming events. Before we ask the questions, we are looking at, keep these dates, guys, keep these dates available. I mean, if you can come in online, I mean, it's an online thing. You can always ask questions. So September 24th is the first activity that we're doing in SDG movement, and then we've got the second SDG would be we are actually looking at the second one is could we turn the slides or can I? Oh yeah, October 16, World Food Day. Okay, zero hunger, and then we also look at November 25th, which is International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. Why does it fall under responsible consumption and production? It's part of the SDGs that they follow under United Nations, of course. December 3rd is another day that I am very true to International Day of Persons with Disabilities. So reduce inequalities. So these are some of the upcoming events. So please do keep the dates available. So we've got, I think, about another 18 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, to be exact, on Q&A. So shall we look at the questions that are being posed? Let's look at the first question. The first question is by Wu Ziying. Yeah? Wu Ziying says, how can students and recent graduates identify their transferable skills and apply them to industries or roles outside their fields of study? Okay. Yes. So Wu has asked this question: how can students and recent graduates identify their transferable skills and apply them to industries or roles outside their fields of study? Arshad, are you able to answer this question?
Uh, hmm. I'm thinking, I mean, I don't want to give a cliche answer to this, because I mean, you would, there are certain skills. I think one of the most important skills that you have in no matter what industry is people skills. No matter how
Yes.
isolated you think your job is, it doesn't matter, like in your head, like, oh, I'm going to be a software engineer, I'm not going to see people. Yes, you are going to see people, and those people will have to like you to be able to work there.
Yeah,
um,
true.
I think there are two things, like two things which are: number one, people skills. You're going to need people skills no matter where you go, and number two is also the ability to ask questions, like genuinely good questions. I was raised by a university professor. Every time I had to argue with someone, I had to argue with the university professor. So I got used to, asking good questions and getting my way, which I sort of slowly grew as I got older into high school, university. And I think that's one of my strengths, is asking good questions, and asking questions that are both interesting and also genuine. And that's how you get to know people, and that's how you get to sort of engage with people, is asking good questions. It can be professional questions about your work, or even questions about themselves. I think one of my strengths, and I so far, touch wood, I have never failed an interview because
Hmm.
at every interview I go, my strategy is to get to know the interviewer and ask good questions and be engaging and have like, conversations outside of the job that I'm trying to apply for or whatever I'm trying to do, because I feel like that is, you need to be an interesting and engaging person. That, yeah, you need to be, and it's the most transferable skill. If you are a boring person, you need to work on that, because that you what you're transferring the most to any industry you go is yourself more than your skills. Skills are easy to learn these days, man. You just go to YouTube and I can learn coding in a new language within a week. Everybody can do that these days. Knowledge is at the tip of your fingers. What is harder to change is yourself, and being interesting and knowing more things than just whatever you're doing for your studies or what you're learning. And I feel like that's the most transferable thing lah.
Yeah, right. Very true. Thank you very much. I think I've got somebody who just posted this.
Yeah.
When it comes down to passion and being realistic, I
Mhm.
assume that our paradigm is that we should focus on our passion to live a more genuine life. But what is
Yeah.
your take on work not having to be your passion,
Yeah.
or it being not something you should think about as something
Yeah.
that aligns with your passion?
I one of the things I said just now, and I genuinely believe in it, was I am incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky that a place like PKK Tuanku Bainun, the organization I work with, melds together education and the arts exactly at the ratio that I want it to. And part of it is also because of my position and my role in shaping the culture there. But at the same time, this place doesn't exist for many of the artists that I know that may be as passionate as me but may not be as lucky as me. So the notion that you have to work in your passion, I feel like, does not apply to everyone. I don't want to make it seem like this is the only way that you should live life. It's not. The people who get to do this are incredibly lucky, and I have to make sacrifices too, because being an NGO, my pay isn't, I'm not working at Maybank exactly, you know what I mean? It's very different. So I think this, to give my perspective into it, I think one thing I can say is, whenever I'm teaching my kids, be it from underprivileged backgrounds or privileged backgrounds, I work from kids from all over the place, from from private school kids to government school kids to juvenile detention center students to refugees to all sorts of backgrounds. My greatest hope for them is not that they become artists. There are enough artists in this world. Artists are annoying. We are an annoying bunch. There can't be too many of us anyway. What I hope for them is that they can go to their job in the morning, and in the evenings uh, do something that they love, whether that be an art or, I don't, your passion could be coding, and you maybe don't have a job in coding, but that's okay, because you still take time to do your passion in the evenings. You could be creating a video game. It's anything, but just make sure that your life isn't living towards serving your corporate overlords. That's one thing that I feel like kills the human soul the most, and I would hate for that to happen to my kids. My idea of success is for them to be an engineer while doing community theater in the evenings, and have enough integrity and assuredness to tell their boss, like, hey, it's 5:30, I'm going home. I hate the culture of continuing work up until midnight, especially if that work is something that you don't care about. I write scripts at night because I love it. I slept at 6 a.m. doing that slide last night because I love it. But that's very different
Wow.
than what a lot of people in Malaysia are going through. And that's why, Southeast Asians, Malaysians are stressed up the wazoo, because we don't have that work life balance here. And that's what I want for my kids. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. It's a good insight. Okay, there's what strategies would you recommend for a recent graduate for to effectively network and stand out in a competitive job market?
Oh, mm, that's, I mean, that aligns with some of the things I said, but it's also a difficult question for me to answer, because one thing that plays the biggest into it, and into these things, and one thing that you have to accept is that luck plays a lot into these things. Sometimes you just get lucky, but at the same time, again, I think being an interesting person that people want to work with is the most important part, because my approach to wanting to work for an organization is that, are these people, and I think even when I'm getting an intern or hiring somebody new, my mentality is, can my team work with this person? Do I want to work with this person? If you are not an interesting person, and if you are dull as a rock, then you're not going to be able to network effectively or network at all, and in that matter, um, when competing for jobs. And I think one thing you need to focus on is the ability. I think the thing about wanting to create holistic people, like I said, wanting to create a holistic life for my students where they do everything and not just one thing, is you tend to be a more interesting person, and you tend to be somebody easier to talk to, and you tend to be more sociable, and you tend to be, well, better rounded and not just focus on that one thing, because I do not like people who can just do one thing and care about one thing and don't have any other modicum of interest in their life. And that's, in my opinion, I could be wrong in many ways, in my opinion, that's what makes someone stand out among the rest lah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Sorry for all the questions. There's so many questions
No,
here, but I'll
okay.
tell you.
I'm enjoying it.
Did you ever experience a shift in your career pathway after your university? Did you see a career pathway shift? And if so, did you navigate the transition? And what advice would you give to students facing the similar situation?
I mean, yeah, when I became a teacher, it was, I remember the night I was, decided to join Teach for Malaysia and become a teacher. It was 1 month before I had to go back to Malaysia. I was in the States. It was 4 a.m. I didn't sleep yet. I didn't have anything to do, and I was completely lost. And I decided, and I remembered, there's this thing called Teach for Malaysia, because they did sort of a talk at my university when I was a freshman, and I immediately took the decision to sign up, and I got the interview, and I got everything. And the thing is, how I transition my career isn't going to be the same as you're going to transition your career, and that's just the truth of life. The one thing I can say is that I think my transition was sort of motivated by a deep desire to be like my teachers and to be the people that I remember the most and made the most difference in my life. I wanted to be them. I wanted to make a difference in my kids' life, and be one of the people who can sort of be a big part of their life. There was a lot of motivation that wasn't just professional but also emotional, that drove me towards changing that career. So I think if you want to make a transition, be very sure and be very passionate in something that you want to transition to. Even if you aren't passionate, even if you're doing it because it pays better, try your best to be as passionate as possible. Study as much as possible, understand the job as much as possible, and understand what you're getting into as much as possible. Don't just learn the basic skills and say, hey, I'm ready to work in software engineering. Hey, I'm ready to work in AI just because I watched what you call a 1 hour YouTube video from a random university lecturer in Harvard. It doesn't work that way. You need to understand everything that you're getting yourself into and be incredibly passionate about it, even though it might be fake.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we have one last question. How common is it for graduates to end up career unrelated to their field of study? Um, can you share some example of
Yeah,
successful individuals?
I mean, I'm pretty successful. I mean, I think I changed my friend who's now has like he did environmental engineering, and he is now a businessman with like 6, 7 F&B restaurants or something like that. I don't even know what he does honestly, but he definitely doesn't do environmental engineering lah. He does contracting and whatnot. I have other friends who started a business and made millions from it, a different business. I know a lot of you all are interested in entrepreneurship. I'd be careful because entrepreneurship has a bubble too. Don't think that you're immediately going to be a success if you become an entrepreneur, and there's only so much space for entrepreneurs in this world, just like any other jobs. And then who else? As I said just now, I can only name one person. My friend, my best friend in high school. We went to the same university. He got a degree from. Sorry, he got a scholarship from Petronas to study petroleum engineering. He got that degree, and then he had the what's that thing called, the bond with Petronas for 5 years. And after 5 years, he's still working at Petronas, and that is and actually I don't even think he's working in downstream anymore. I think he's working in corporate. So it's still Petronas, but still a different field lah. So even then, the only reason he stayed in his field was because of his bond with Petronas. And aside that, the only ones I can name and are the ones with bonds. I have a friend with a bond with Kazan National. Even then, she quit her job after her bond ended. Yeah, so these a lot of people change fields, and I think the reason I want to talk about this is not to discourage you to continue studying university. No, university was a great time in my life. I learned a lot from it. I got a lot from my education there, but it's to make you sort of not focus too much on the one thing that you're learning. If you're studying business, don't just focus 100% on business, because you don't know for sure whether or not you'll be doing business after you graduate college. Learn about other things, learn about the arts, learn about sciences, learn about computer programming, learn about whatever there is to learn out there, because all these skills might bring you to a different path in the future. Like all of the skills I've learned throughout doing little passion projects throughout my life, be it theater, be it writing, be it even video editing, working with Adobe, designing everything. I apply it all now, and that is what I hope you guys would do as well. My message is not don't go to university. Go to university, get the education, get that degree, get that paper, but it's more of don't be too focused on one thing, because you might be missing out, or you might be left behind if things in your life shift and things in your life change. My own path did not shift just for no reason. It shifted out of changes in my own personal life as well, changes in my family, changes in a lot of things. So that is what I'm hoping for those who are, for some reason, thank you for listening, but for some reason listening to me speak.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, let's wrap it up now to basically thank you. Really, very insightful. In fact, I'm very taken aback with some of the answers and the questions. The questions posed by our viewers are really good. And I presume they're all students. I don't see any adults asking any questions.
My
I hope
dad
the
is
parents,
listening.
huh?
Hi, Dad.
Dad is listening.
I think he's retired. He doesn't have anything to do. He's watched all his Netflix shows.
Oh,
Hi,
that's
Dad.
yeah, great. That's great. At least you got a ardent fan of yours. Anyway, it's great. This collaboration is a perfect embodiment of spirit of International Youth Day, underscoring the importance of empowering youth to address global challenges through creativity and sustainability. And really, Arshad, your dedication in choosing such a field that in theatre, speaking up for youths as a means of inspiring and engaging the community truly reflects the words of Picasso says, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once we grow up. Your work with Sustainable Future Fusion and our commitment to empowering young people through theatres are making a profound difference from the script to the stage. We craft narratives that build a better world. Together, we are working towards a brighter, more sustainable future for all. Thank you so much for your valuable contribution. And it's a great chance that we actually cross paths to have something like this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so I just want one self plug. Please follow PKK Tuanku Bainun. This is the and then
Follow you too?
the Instagram is PKK Tuanku Bainun. We have a show coming on soon with my
Yes.
kids. It's a
Okay.
good show. Please come. So yeah, I
Okay.
won't
Thank
give my
you.
personal account because it's private account. But please follow my organization. You'll know everything that I do there.
Yeah. So,
Right.
and Arshad's from PKK Tuanku Bainun, which is in Taman Tun. And if you are interested, they have a lot of events, a lot of very good CSR projects, which APU, Asia Pacific University
Yeah.
students have actually done work with, and we've got more work to come. So please do join us for our next episode in the following months. Thank you very much, Arshad, and all the best to your future. Thank you.
Thank you.